Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time we're looking into quitting marijuana. We'll be focusing on the research, particularly those two studies. One followed daily marijuana users over a period of 3 months, and the other looked at withdrawal symptoms, but this time in a controlled setting.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
So we're about to unpack a ton of science to help you figure out how to quit. So get ready. And remember, this is just for informational purposes only.
Yeah.
If you want personalized advice, you should definitely talk to your doctor.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It was good to get that professional opinion.
You know, going into this, I was pretty intimidated by the whole quitting thing.
Yeah, I can see that. It does seem like a big step.
Like, it just seems so final.
Yeah.
But then I started looking at this one study, attempts to stop or reduce daily cannabis use. And one thing that really surprised me was that most people actually don't quit on their first try.
Oh, really? That's interesting. I would have thought that once people made the decision to quit, they'd just, power through.
Yeah, I thought so too. But it turns out that most people make a few attempts before they finally kick the habit.
Huh. So it's more of a journey than a one-time event.
Exactly. And here's the really encouraging part. Even those failed attempts aren't a waste of effort.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Because I bet it can be pretty discouraging when you slip up.
Yeah, I can imagine. The study actually showed that each attempt, whether it's to quit completely or just cut back, can actually predict future quit attempts.
So each time you try, you're actually learning something valuable.
Exactly. You're learning about yourself and your relationship with marijuana.
Okay, so even if you stumble, you're still moving forward.
Exactly. And it can also help lessen dependence and all the problems that come with it.
So even if you're not quite ready to say goodbye to marijuana for good, simply cutting back could be a really powerful first step.
That's a great way to think about it. It's like training wheels for your quit journey.
I like that. You're building momentum, learning about your triggers, and setting yourself up for long-term success.
Exactly. And as you start to reduce your use, you might actually be surprised at the positive changes you start to experience.
Oh yeah, like what?
Well, you might find you have more energy. You might start sleeping better. Or you might just feel more clear-headed.
Wow. Yeah, those are some pretty good motivators.
They really are. And those early wins can give you the fuel you need to keep going and make quitting completely feel much more achievable.
I can see that. It's like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. Now, I know that when people quit marijuana, sometimes they have withdrawal symptoms. So what does the research say about what people can expect?
Well, that's where the second study comes in, cannabis withdrawal in chronic frequent cannabis smokers. They basically observed people in a controlled environment for 30 days.
Oh, wow. So they were completely cut off from marijuana.
Yeah, they wanted to see what would happen when they completely stopped using. And what's really interesting is they found that even short breaks from cannabis can lead to withdrawal symptoms.
Wait, so even if you're not a heavy user, you could still experience withdrawal if you take a break.
That's right. And some of the common symptoms they found were anxiety, irritability, trouble sleeping, and changes in appetite.
Okay, so nothing too crazy.
No, the good news is that for most people, these symptoms were mild to moderate.
That's good to hear, because I know a lot of people are really worried about withdrawal. So knowing that it's often manageable can make a big difference.
Yeah, it definitely takes some of the fear away. And remember, withdrawal is just temporary.
Oh, right. It's just your body adjusting to life without marijuana.
Exactly. And as you continue to abstain, those symptoms will gradually fade away.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
Now, you mentioned that this second study was done in a controlled environment. How does that affect the findings on withdrawal?
That's a really good question. It actually highlights how important your environment can be in your quit experience.
Oh, interesting. So where you are and who you're with can really make a difference.
It really can. The study suggests that quitting in a controlled environment like a research facility might lead to milder withdrawal symptoms than quitting in a place where there are lots of reminders of marijuana.
So if you surround yourself with positive influences and avoid things that trigger you to use, it could really help you manage withdrawal.
Exactly. It's all about setting yourself up for success by creating an environment that supports your goals.
Okay, so we'll definitely delve deeper into practical strategies for minimizing those triggers and maximizing support later on.
Sounds good. But first, let's switch gears and talk about this meta-analysis that gives us a broader perspective on cannabis withdrawal syndrome.
Okay, sounds good. Let's do it.
It combines data from 47 studies with over 23,000 participants.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it gives us a really broad view of just how common cannabis withdrawal syndrome actually is.
Yeah, exactly. Or CWS for short.
Right, CWS.
Yeah.
So what did this analysis tell us about how common CWS is?
Well, the findings were pretty striking. The overall prevalence of CWS was 47%.
47%.
Wow.
So almost half of all regular or dependent cannabis users experience withdrawal symptoms when they try to quit?
That's right.
Wow. I think that really highlights how important it is to be prepared for withdrawal if you're thinking about quitting marijuana.
Absolutely. And this meta-analysis went even deeper. They actually identified certain factors that seem to make people more likely to experience CWS.
Oh, that's interesting. Like what kind of factors?
Well, one thing they found was that men were more likely to experience CWS than women.
Oh, really? I wonder why that is.
Yeah, it's not entirely clear, but it's something researchers are still investigating.
Yeah. Okay, so men might have a tougher time with withdrawal. Interesting. What else did they find?
Found that people who also used other drugs or tobacco were more likely to have CWS.
Okay, so there's a connection there.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one probably won't surprise you. The more often someone used cannabis, the more likely they were to experience withdrawal when they stopped.
Right. Makes sense. The more you use it, the more dependent your body becomes.
Exactly. So if you're thinking about quitting, it's a good idea to keep those risk factors in mind.
Yeah, it helps you understand what you might be up against.
Right. And it can help you come up with a plan for managing those withdrawal symptoms.
This meta-analysis has definitely given us a lot to think about.
It has. But I think it's also important to remember that the research is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right. There's the human side of things, too.
Exactly. There are all sorts of reasons why people choose to quit marijuana.
Yeah, it's not just about avoiding withdrawal. It's got to be more than that.
Right. It's often about wanting to improve their lives in some way.
Like what kinds of things?
Well, some people want to feel more clear-headed and focused. Some want to have more energy, or maybe they want to sleep better.
Oh, yeah. Those are all good reasons.
And some people just want to feel more in control of their lives.
I can see that. So quitting isn't just about giving something up. It's about gaining something, too.
Exactly. It's about investing in your well-being and creating a life that feels more aligned with your values and goals.
I love that. But now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. How do people actually increase their chances of quitting successfully? Are there any strategies that really work?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And while there's no magic bullet, there are definitely some things that the research suggests can help.
Oh, good. So tell me what works.
Well, one of the most important things is getting support from a professional, like a therapist or a counselor.
That makes sense. Having someone to guide you through the process can be really helpful.
Exactly. They can help you understand your relationship with marijuana, figure out what your triggers are, and come up with a plan that's tailored to your needs.
It's like having a coach in your corner.
I like that analogy. But there are also some practical things you can do on your own.
Oh, good. Like what?
Well, one thing that really stands out from the research is the power of planning. The attempts to stop or reduce daily cannabis use study found that people who did certain things before they tried to quit were actually more likely to stay abstinent for longer.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of things are we talking?
Well, things like telling other people about your decision to quit, getting advice from people who've already quit successfully, and getting rid of anything in your environment that reminds you of marijuana.
So it's all about setting yourself up for success.
Exactly. You want to minimize temptations and surround yourself with support.
Makes sense. So you're creating an environment that's conducive to quitting.
Right. And another really important part of planning is figuring out what your triggers are.
Oh, yeah. Those things that make you want to use.
Exactly. Once you know what your triggers are, you can start coming up with ways to deal with them.
So it's like having a game plan for when those cravings hit.
Exactly. And there are all sorts of coping mechanisms that can help, like mindfulness exercises, deep breathing techniques, or even just doing something else you enjoy, like going for a walk, listening to music, or spending time with friends.
So it's about finding healthy ways to distract yourself and manage those uncomfortable feelings.
Exactly. And the more tools you have in your toolbox, the better.
I like that. It's starting to feel like quitting is actually doable.
It is. It just takes some planning and some effort.
But remember, you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
There are so many resources out there to help you.
Absolutely. There are therapists, support groups, online communities, and even apps.
Oh, so there's really no excuse not to get help if you need it.
Nope, you've got this. But I think we should also think about how all of this fits into the bigger picture of addiction and recovery.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. So how does quitting marijuana relate to addiction in general?
Well, the first thing to remember is that marijuana, just like using any other substance, can become a problem for some people.
Right. It can turn into something more serious.
Yeah, it can lead to dependence or even addiction, which basically means your brain's reward system gets messed up. And that can make quitting incredibly hard.
So it's not just about willpower then?
No, not at all. Addiction is a complex condition. It involves actual changes in your brain chemistry and how your brain circuits work.
So it's a physical thing.
Yeah. And those changes make it hard to control your use, even if you know it's causing problems in your life.
So sometimes just wanting to quit isn't enough?
Right. And understanding that addiction is a real medical condition is super important
How so?
because it changes how we think about treatment and recovery.
Oh, I see.
It shows us how important it is to get professional help and to use treatments that actually address the underlying issues, both physically and mentally.
So we need to treat addiction like the medical condition it is.
Exactly. It's not about being weak or lacking willpower.
It's about getting the right help.
Right. And we also need to stop the stigma surrounding addiction.
Oh, yeah. That's so important.
People need to feel comfortable asking for help without feeling judged.
Definitely.
Mm.
Now let's talk about the recovery process. What does that actually look like?
Well, recovery isn't just a one-time thing. It's an ongoing journey.
It's more about the long haul.
Exactly. It's about learning new ways to cope, building healthy habits, and building a support system.
So it's not just about saying no to marijuana. It's about rebuilding your life.
Right. You need to find things you're passionate about, strengthen your relationships, and create a life that's in line with your values.
It's about so much more than just quitting.
It really is. And remember, recovery isn't always easy. There will be setbacks along the way.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it's not about being perfect. It's about progress.
So you just have to keep moving forward.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to reach out for support when things get tough. Talking to people who understand what you're going through can make all the difference. And remember, everything we've discussed is based on scientific research. But it's always a good idea to talk to a healthcare professional for advice that's specific to you.
Right. They can help you figure out the best way to quit and support you along the way.
Now, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just want to say thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the science of quitting marijuana.
And don't forget to subscribe to Science Research Explained for more deep dives into fascinating research.
See you next time.